Oswald was very uncooperative. They couldn't even get him to admit anything once they showed him the photo, the backyard photo at the Neely residence. He was just so out of it. And so Fritz had had enough. He and Chief Curry had talked about transferring Oswald on the 23rd at 4 o'clock. But Fritz wanted to have some more time to try to get a confession of Oswald. It was obvious to him that that was not going to happen after he couldn't even get him to admit to anything after showing him the photograph of him holding the rifle and having the pistol on his hip in the backyard of the Neely residence. So we move on to the 24th of November, 1963, and at 9:30 a.m. that morning, Oswald is brought down to the 3rd floor again from his upper level jail cell. And at this time, the 3rd floor is completely cleared. There isn't a reporter on the 3rd floor when Oswald comes down the morning of the 24th. Why not, Lauren? Why aren't these reporters there? Well, they weren't told the exact time, so what does that mean? They said around 10, so why weren't they in the 3rd floor? Where were all of them? They were in the basement of the building waiting for that 10 o'clock a.m. transfer, okay? Because they didn't know when it was going to happen. Some even went down there as early as 6 in the morning because they didn't really trust the fact that it'd be around 10. And they knew the nervousness about the whole thing in general. So the media were all down in the basement of the building waiting for that 10 a.m. transfer. Well, Oswald is taken back into Captain Fritz's office and he's interviewed, and this time Postal Inspector Harry Holmes is there as well, because Holmes wants to ask you some questions about the A.J. Heidel alias, because he ordered materials through the mail with an alias name, which is a federal offense. So Holmes is concerned because Oswald violated federal postal regulations by using the alias A.J. Heidel to receive the mail. So Captain Fritz gets him in there at 9:30 in the morning on the 24th. The first question he asks him is, Lee, did you shoot the president? And he simply answers no. Fritz then asks Oswald about shooting Officer Tippett, and again Oswald denies shooting the officer as well. Well, then Fritz asks him again, have you ever been to Mexico City? In which Oswald finally admits that he had actually traveled to Mexico City. And when Fritz asked him why he went to Mexico City, he told Fritz that he tried to get a travel visa to both Cuba and the Soviet Union and was denied, which is true. He did do that. He finally, after all this interrogation, finally comes up with some truth to the questions he's being asked. Harry Holmes, the postal inspector, then asked Oswald about the name of Heidel and wondered if this man, Heidel, had ever gotten mail at Oswald's mailbox, and Oswald responded, no, not that I'm aware of. Which he's kind of telling the truth because there is nobody named Heidel, okay? Holmes then shows the ID card of Heidel with his photo on it, and he asks Oswald, how do you explain this? And he simply responded, I don't. At this point, Captain Fritz has had more than enough, and he decides it's time to transfer Oswald to the city jail. And Fritz informs Oswald that it's gotten a little bit chilly, remember this is November, and wonders if he wants a sweater to wear or something to be warmer when he's transferred. Oswald agrees to this, and they went up and got some of his clothes were brought down so he could pick what he wanted to wear, and Oswald picked a black sweater to put on and wear during the transfer. Now, a lot of people ask, why are you moving Oswald from the city jail to the county jail? And we talked about this a little bit. The first reason why is they felt the sooner they got Oswald out of the county jail, the sooner the Dallas police would get rid of all the media that's just driving them absolutely insane on a daily basis. The second reason is they thought Oswald would be more secure and safer in another facility. It was a better facility for safety. Now the plan was to move Oswald by armored car from the city jail to the county jail, and according to police detective Jim Lavelle, that would be this fellow right here in an older age, this fellow right here at the time. According to Jim Lavelle, the Dallas Police Department had received numerous calls daily since the assassination threatening to either kill or capture Oswald. Because people were mad that he shot the President of the United States. Not sure what kind of reaction you get today, but then people were very upset, and people in Dallas were very upset because it was done in their city, and they were embarrassed, including Jack Ruby, which we'll talk about later. Well, Lavelle and most other police officers really believed that they should have transferred Oswald in the middle of the night for his safety. But Police Chief Curry chose no. Why? Why did Curry choose to have him moved approximately 10 o'clock in the morning? Publicity. The media was hounding the devil out of him. They really hadn't got a chance too much to see the assassin of the president. So Police Chief Curry was getting enormous pressure from the media to display Oswald for the entire world to see. And as a result, Curry made arrangements so the press could witness the transfer of Oswald. It would give the media a chance to show the world the assassin of President Kennedy. And that's why he told the media that the transfer would occur around 10 a.m. on the 24th. Well, this final interview with Oswald by Fritz and Harry Holmes is what really delayed this transfer. So it was 11:19 a.m. when police officers arrived at Captain Fritz's office on the 3rd floor of the city jail, and from there they were going to escort Oswald to the elevator on the upper floor, take him to the basement of the city jail, and from the basement Oswald would be transferred by armored car to the county jail. At 11:21 a.m., Detective Lavelle was ordered by Captain Fritz to handcuff himself to Oswald for the transfer. Here's Jim Lavelle right here with Buell Frazier. Jim is 97 years old at this point. He was 43 at the time of the assassination, 1963. He was born in 1920. He's the oldest living witness, so to speak, to this assassination, taking in mind that Buell Frazier was 19 at the time and Lavelle was 43. There isn't anyone living that's that old anymore. Jim is the last of the Mohicans, so to speak. Now, according to Jim Lavelle, then I got this straight from him, Oswald was very cordial. He asked to put on the black sweater prior to leaving his cell. They allowed him to do so. And as he was escorting Oswald, Lavelle stated to Oswald, "Lee, if anyone shoots at you, I hope they are as good a shot as you were." That's what Lavelle said to him, kind of in a joking manner. He said that Oswald chuckled and told Lavelle that no one's going to shoot at me and quit being so melodramatic. Nevertheless, Lavelle was serious. He reminded Oswald on what he was to do if he was shot at. It wasn't a surprise maybe that somebody was going to do that. They had received threats. That's why Lavelle wanted him transferred in the middle of the night. Well, when Lavelle reminded Oswald on what to do, Oswald responded by saying, "I will just follow you." And Lavelle responded back, "In that case, you'll be on the ground." Well, when the elevator reached the basement, the area was just full of reporters, and you'll get a chance to see this. Media personnel just packed in there. The transfer of the assassin of President Kennedy is going to be broadcast live on television stations all across the country. All across the country. Now, the armored car, this is an interesting story, the armored car that was supposed to take Oswald from the city jail to county jail was being pulled out of the ramp that was led to the basement. In other words, it was back down, and then they pulled it out. Anybody want to guess why they pulled it out? You'd think of this, but they didn't. Why did they pull that armored car out, which was the best safety for him? What do you want to guess? Well, in those days, air conditioning was kind of a new thing, and the air conditioning ducts were really big, and they were hanging from the ceiling of the ramp. And when they backed that armored car down the ramp to secure him, it wouldn't fit, because they had never had an armored car down there before, and it hit the duct, the air conditioning duct, and they had to pull him out. Now, they're going to use it as a decoy. That's the decision they made when they figured out it wouldn't fit down there. So what they did is they got Captain Fritz's personal unmarked car, and they were backing it down to transfer Oswald as they brought him out of the elevator that brought him from the upper floor to the basement. Can you all kind of picture that in your mind? So the armored car was replaced by Captain Fritz's personal unmarked car. Now, as Oswald walked from the elevator doors to the car, the vehicle was still backing up, causing Oswald and Lavelle and the entourage around him to walk an extra 10 yards. If the armored car would have been in place, they would have walked 10 less yards to get in it. That 10 yards is going to be fatal for Lee Harvey Oswald, and we'll explain why. So that takes us to his assassination. Oswald comes down the elevator opens, he moves into the basement area towards Fritz's car. As Fritz's car is still backing up, and a man suddenly passes between a newsman and a detective at the edge of the crowd. The man extended his right hand and, holding a .38 caliber revolver, stepped quickly forward towards Oswald. The man then fired a single shot into Oswald's abdomen. He tried to fire off a second shot, but Officer L.C. Graves grabbed the pistol, preventing the gun from firing. Officer Graves was standing to Oswald's left during the shooting. Go ahead and get in your books and pull out your handout that I gave you that looks like this. This is pretty amazing. You have the old adage, kiddos, being in the right place at the right time. Well, Bob Jackson, who is a reporter, photographer for the Dallas Times-Herald, takes a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph the moment that Jack Ruby shoots Lee Harvey Oswald. We'll read through this. Bob Jackson, photographer for the Dallas Times-Herald, is dead tired as he waits in the basement of the city jail for Lee Harvey Oswald to be brought out. Only 47 hours earlier, he had been sitting in the back of a convertible behind President Kennedy's motorcade. He heard 3 shots, looked up at where they were coming from, and saw the rifle being drawn back into the window. He has not slept much since. Now they are moving Oswald from the city jail to the county jail, from one end of town to another. It is a normal procedure. They feel he will be safer there. Also, they are under pressure from the networks to show Oswald to allow Oswald to be televised. They want a picture of this guy. Everyone wants to see him. It is the biggest news story going, and it's live. An anonymous telephone call to the FBI at 2:15 a.m. the night before warned that Oswald will be killed during the transfer from the city lockup to the county jail. The FBI immediately relayed the warning to both city and county police. Later, the city police dispatcher said the call never came in. Bob Jackson. I had seen Ruby once. He came up to the photo department of the paper and brought one of his strippers up there who danced with a snake. He was getting publicity for her. Ruby loved the police. He owned a striptease club, and he always wanted to keep on their good side. He would go up to the police station late at night, bring them sandwiches, and hang around like a buddy. Does it seem unusual then that he would be up there during the time Oswald was being bantered back and forth? They showed you that several times in the video? No. As Bob is waiting with the other newsmen and camera crews, they announce that Oswald is being brought down. In the air was a feeling that something could happen. When Oswald came out the door, I raised the camera to my eye. People yelled out, "Here he comes!" I was ready. We stood in a semicircle about 11 feet in front of the door, which formed a little clearing. I was leaning against the fender of a police car. As I looked through the camera, Oswald took 8 or 10 steps, and I saw a body moving into my line of sight. I leaned over the car to the left. Ruby moved 3 quick steps, and bang! When he shot, I shot. History turns on crucial moments, and Jackson's photograph freezes this one. It records the instant the bullet enters Oswald's body. His face contorts as he clutches his chest. The bullet fired by a man who wasn't supposed to be there, and millions of Americans watch it happen live, sitting in their living rooms. That picture went on to become a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. Here is Bob Jackson right here, the man that took the photograph. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is myself and Jim Lavelle in about 1998, and he has me handcuffed in the exact handcuffs that Oswald was in. That was pretty cool. Anyway, we'll move on. Now, I want to talk about this transfer car that was Fritz's. If that car would have already been in place, or they would have used the armored car, it would have fit down and been already in place, Ruby would have been blocked from getting a shot at Oswald at all, unless he would have chosen to shoot maybe from Tristan and I over the back of the car. That was just a really tough time in history because that car was backing up. And as it backed up, Ruby got behind it before it could get backed up and shot Oswald. If it would have been in place, Ruby would have been on the other side and never gotten that kind of shot. And historians wonder if he would have taken a shot from Tristan to I rather than get as close as he did. Who knows? And history could have changed. Well, during this televised assassination, Dallas KRLD newsman Bob Huffaker, he is also up on the board here. He's the first to report back about Oswald's shooting. And if you look at all the news footage of the aftermath of Oswald's shooting, you'll see Bob Huffaker in all of the footage. So he becomes what we know as the image of history in reporting to the nation the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay? He becomes the Abraham Zapruder of the assassination of Oswald. Okay? All right, well, that takes us to another subtopic then, which is another trip to Parkland Hospital. Now put yourself in the place of those doctors who frantically tried to save President Kennedy's life, and here comes now the assassin of the president. Well, Oswald was shot in the stomach about 2 inches above and to the left of his navel, so in this area right here, okay? The bullet went through Oswald's stomach, it hit a major artery, traveled through his liver, hit the 7th rib, and lodged in his skin on the other side of the body. In other words, it did not go out. Because if it goes out, Jim Lavelle will feel the effect of that. It actually comes through the skin and is just kind of sticking in the skin. Not out of the skin, but just at the edge of the skin. Now the personal car of Captain Fritz had not made it all the way down the basement like I mentioned, so it was quickly replaced by an ambulance, and you'll see that in footage. Oswald was loaded into the ambulance. You can see in his face he's ashen, and he's rushed to Parkland Hospital. Jim Lavelle make sure that Oswald gets in, and you can see him jump in the back of the ambulance as well. Well, just minutes after this televised assassination, an unconscious Oswald arrives at Parkland Hospital. And I'm going to guess that the police station from Daley Plaza is probably a half mile maybe not even that, so that's the vicinity you're looking. Now, according to Dr. Robert McClellan, who we've talked about before during the Kennedy assassination, Oswald was as white as a piece of paper. Now, Oswald was accompanied to Parkland Hospital by Secret Service agents with their machine guns drawn, and they ordered an agent to stand right close to Oswald the whole time. Why? Why was an agent? Well, he's in bad enough shape. The only thing he's going to do, they hope he's going to do, is what? Confess. So a Secret Service agent was ordered to stand as close to Oswald as possible in case he wanted to make what they considered a deathbed confession, which obviously he did not. At Parkland Hospital, Oswald was treated in the same vicinity where President Kennedy was pronounced dead just 48 hours earlier. Now, it's been insinuated, I don't think anybody has this for sure, but it's been insinuated that as Oswald was pushed towards Trauma Room 1 that afternoon, or about noon, nurses redirected Oswald to Trauma Room 2. They did not want to treat him in the same room that they had treated the president. In Trauma Room 2, Dr. Ron Jones, Malcolm Perry, Robert McClellan operated on Oswald for more than an hour, and during that time they administered 16 pints of blood before Oswald's heart arrested. How many pints of blood does the body hold? Isn't 16 the total number you have? You have 20? Okay, well that's a ton, right? Now, in a final desperate effort to save Oswald, because they wanted to save him because when he dies, everything dies with him, any information. Dr. Perry, who performed the trach on President Kennedy, actually opened Oswald's chest and did open cardiac massage directly to his heart to no avail. Jim Lavelle, who had accompanied Oswald to Parkland Hospital, could see the bullet fired by Jack Ruby under Oswald's skin near his back. He could see it. It had come out that far. So he told one of the doctors he needed to have that bullet for evidence. So the doctor basically just pinched the skin and took a scalpel and just popped it like a grape, according to Jim Lavelle. Just popped it out of there, and it popped right out of his skin, and he handed it to Lavelle. Lavelle then had a nurse that was standing by him do what to the bullet to prove its authenticity? What did she do? She scratched her initials on it so that he had proof that was the bullet. Well, after treatment by doctors at Parkland, Lee Harvey Oswald was officially pronounced dead at 1:07 p.m. on November 24th, 1963. Now, this is a quote about Lee Harvey Oswald from Dr. Ronald Jones. He was the chief surgical assistant in 1963 who assisted with the resuscitation attempts on both Kennedy and Oswald. He was the one that was helping Perry with the trach. He said, "I thought very likely that he was probably the one who had shot the president. But by the same token, it didn't influence what we did. In one sense, it was a little ironic that you go through resuscitation of someone knowing that if they are guilty, that you're probably going to get a death sentence. But you would have liked the same to save Oswald because he might have been able to furnish you with a tremendous amount of information." So they tried like crazy to save him, to no avail. So now we always often wonder, what was the role of Jack Ruby? We talked about Jack Ruby and we've talked about Jack Ruby. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Jack Ruby, and this is my kind of non-conspiracy theorist report as well. Now, obviously the man who shot Oswald in the Dallas City jail basement was later identified as Jack Ruby. He was the owner of a local nightclub in downtown Dallas. He was immediately arrested and eventually taken to the county jail at the Dallas County Courthouse to await trial. So he was filed on at the city jail, but they transferred him right away to the county jail because they knew what he did. Everybody saw it. And so he simply went there to await trial. Now, after Oswald was shot and killed by Jack Ruby, Oswald was buried at Rose Hill Cemetery in Fort Worth, Texas, which we'll talk about. Well, let's talk about Jack Ruby and what he did on November 22nd, 1963. Just before the shooting in Daley Plaza, he was actually sitting in the offices of the Dallas Morning News. What would he be doing there, do you think? Think about what I told you about it. What's he doing in the offices of the Dallas Morning News? He's putting ads in the newspaper for his two strip joints. One was called the Carousel Club, and the other one was called the Vegas Club. He had two strip joints in Dallas. And he was simply at the Dallas Morning News putting in advertisements for his strip joints. Well, he opens up the paper and he sees that ad up there. You've had a copy of it.